So this is just a chart that goes over nonspecific immunity. And nonspecific immunity, what's an example without looking at your chart? Don't look. What is it? We were talking about it earlier. Everyone has it, nonspecific. Fever, okay. Go on. Inflammation, fever. Everyone gets fever unless you're old. Everyone inflames unless you're old. Sorry, Janet. And everyone, yeah. No, she's. I know. Your skin, right? Yeah, everyone has skin. At least, I hope you do. and then like your mucosa membrane. So, nonspecific, it's here, everyone has it. Everyone has nonspecific just because of the way they're shaped. So going through this, species resistance, phagocytosis, fever, mechanical barrier, also known as your skin, your mucosa membrane. We're going to go through each of these. Natural killer cells, inflammation, and chemical barriers. So your species resistant. All of these are second line of defense, by the way, except for mechanical barrier. Your mechanical barrier, also known as your skin, is the only first line of resistance. So the first one we're going to go over is the second line of defense. This is your species resistance. Your species resistance depends on your pH, your temperature, and your chemical environment. So the viruses and bacteria our body gets, we get that because our pH and our temperature the bacteria and the viruses love us, so they grow in us, right? However, I think it's a dog, but a dog's temperature is a lot higher. Yeah. So the same stuff that makes us sick doesn't make our dogs sick because the bacteria that likes to live in us is too hot in the dog. Yeah. So they're like, no, we're gonna get you sick instead. And it's like, why is us? So lucky us, right? I mean, we have the ideal pH and chemical and temperature environment. So that's your species resistance. So our species, Homo sapiens, humans, people, that's our species resistance versus canine something means dog, or feline is cat. That's their species. They have their other issues. Or avian, which means like bird. So, yeah. So lucky us, right? Phagocytosis is the next one. This is the second line of defense. This has to do with, I draw this a lot, but you have here phagocytosis, right? Whenever I draw Pac-Man, it eats germs. So there you go. It's running away. And this has to do, what is the main phagocyte that we know of? Yeah. Monocytes. And also, there's neutrophils. Yep, good. So your monocytes and your neutrophils are really the ones, but your monocytes are the ones that are your main macrophages. So you have monocyte, macrophage. They both start with M. The next second line of defense is known as your fever. This utilizes interleukin-1. So if there's any takeaway you get from fever, interleukin-1, it should be the biggest thing you should highlight, star, underline, whatever. Interleukin-1 is an endogenous pyrogen. So endogenous means what? Inner, yeah, inner. You're close. Indo means inner. Indo means like inside. Inter means between, yeah. Yeah, but no, you're good. Yeah, so indo is inner, and pyrogen, so pyro means fire. So what does it feel like when you have a fever? You heat up. And why does your body heat up? Yeah, because we have ideal temperatures. When we get a fever, we want to kill that bacteria. And some people think like, oh, if a kid gets a fever, you give him like, an aspirin, or actually never. Typically with children, don't give them aspirin.
Oh, okay.
They can get a disease from a toxicity overdose with aspirin, so aspirin's not the first choice. But you can give them something else. Yeah, ibuprofen, that's a lot safer. Sorry, it's like, oh no, spacing. But yeah, some people think, oh, give them ibuprofen, decrease their fever, but our body is trying to fight something. Unless that fever and that swelling and everything is life-threatening, like if it closes up their airway or something, then you should, if their life's in danger. But if they have a fever, I don't really agree with giving them something to decrease their fever because it's trying to fight something, right? Let that fever go through. Let that thing kill it, you know? It's uncomfortable. It's a life-threatening situation, then yeah, you should most definitely kill the fever, but typically fever is pretty healthy. So elevated body temperature to inhibit microbial growth, that's the rest of it. The next one, the only first line of defense is known as our mechanical barrier. So our barrier is like our skin, our mucosa membranes, mucus, our hair. Our hair is actually good, that's why we have it in our armpits, lucky us, right? And some guys have it around their mouths, I guess, to prevent stuff from getting in. Or also, our eyelashes and our eyebrows prevent dust from getting into our eyes. So that's pretty neat. So when you think about, you know, people who like use makeup and stuff, it's like they put it on their eyelashes and their eyebrows. It's for me, it's kind of like, whew. But if that's something people want to do, that's fine. But it's like I'm decorating my first line of defenses. It's like, what are you doing to yourself? Anyway, you're beautiful already. Another mechanical barrier is also your gastric juice. So remember, in the respiratory system, we have, what is that sweeps mucus up our trachea and puts it into the esophagus? What is that called? Yeah, your cilia. So your cilia sweep up everything, all of that in your mucus, which is a mechanical barrier also, and it's dumped into your esophagus where you swallow it and then you dissolve that bacteria. So they don't like living there, so it's like, well, get out. Another one that some people kind of forget about is natural killer cells. The main takeaway with natural killer cells, so everyone has these, they secrete perforons that lyse cell membranes of viruses and cancer. So perforons, I think about like natural killer cells, like kind of like ninjas, and the perforons are kind of like ninja stars. So if that helps. So they throw like these ninja stars and like breaks all their membranes. So, and they attack primarily viruses and cancer. So they're natural killers. Yeah, or like split, cut, yeah. So they're the natural killers, the natural assassins, right, with their ninja stars. Huh? Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, that'd be pretty neat to be a natural killer cell. Inflammation is another second line of defense. This is characterized by redness, swelling, heat, and pain. Inflammation typically walls off the infection site and stops the spread of infection. So this is pretty neat, and I think we went over this before, but I'm just going to draw it for the sake of, well, drawing. So this, okay, well, this can be a vein or artery or whatever you want to think about it as. So this is your natural vessel, all right? Just say you get attacked or you get bit by an animal, okay? So, I don't know. So this is its teeth. You get bit by something, I don't know. So you have this, and what enters your body is a bacteria, right? So this is your little Pac-Man ghost. Yeah, I'm going to draw bigger. So you get infected, right?
He should be happy, actually.
He should be happy. Do they smile? Or do they just look like that? Well, it's happy because it's like, aha, now I can infect you. Now it's evil. Okay. So you get infected. I'm going to erase that. So your body will try to wall off this infection. And this basically means your vessel will pinch, kind of. Think about that. So it will kind of pinch here, and it will wall off the infection. So when the infection gets down here, it can't spread. So it'll be like, what is this? What is going on? Like, I can't get through, you know? So it walls off the side of the infection. Another thing, too, is while this side pinches, this side, the other side of it, because blood is flowing this way, it'll get bigger, right? Because you're trying to increase the size of your vessel to increase the amount of white blood cells, the policemen, to help. So your white blood cells in your macrophages, you're going to be torn apart by a bunch of Pac-Men. So it increases in size in order to, so as one end splits, the infection is walled off. It increases blood flow to bring more white blood cells. So when you look at the symptoms, redness. Redness happens because of the increased blood flow. Swelling. Swelling is when it gets kind of puffy. That increases because it gets bigger. It's pinched here and it's just inflames. That's swelling. It gets bigger. That's why it kind of hurts, because it presses on your nerves. The heat comes from the increased blood flow, and the pain comes from that swelling pressing against the nerves. So does that make sense? So now you're worried. Oh no. Yep. You're going to die. All right. So that's inflammation. Okay, so the last one we have is a chemical barrier, and this includes your enzymes, your interferons, your defensins, collectins, and complement. So that's a lot. I think we have actually a worksheet on this, on collectins and all of that, the chemical barriers. So I'm going to check really fast. Well, kind of, yeah. This kind of goes over. So this worksheet with the Pac-Man ghost, it talks about different kinds of complement. So we'll get through that. But these we'll revisit, the enzymes, interferons, defensins, collectins, and complement. But those are all chemical barriers. So big words to pay attention to is chemical barriers, these words, because these are things people kind of forget. Your natural killer cells and your perforons, which are like the ninjas that throw ninja stars. And then fever and interleukin-1. Just because you haven't seen it a whole lot, you haven't heard it a whole lot, that's something to keep in mind. But then everything else is also important. So number 1 is now asking about actions of the macrophage. So macrophage is like our Pac-Men, okay? We have diapedesis, chemotaxis, and adhesion. So diapedesis, what is diapedesis? Huh?
No, I just know the BNC, I just don't know this one.
Pid.
Is that the movement of
Mm-hmm.
through the tissue?
Kind of. So ped, what does ped mean? It means your foot.
Okay.
Yeah, not child. But it can also mean child, but it means foot, okay? Ped, pedestrian. Pedestrian is one who walks, one who you should not hit, especially if it's me. So diapedesis is, so foot, whenever you think about foot, you're going to think about stepping. So diapedesis is, and I think Janet uses the phrase, if I were to go into this corner of the wall and kind of like squeeze through and just come out the other way, that's diapedesis, when you're able to step through and just kind of like how a rat gets through holes in your house, or mice do. They just kind of like put their head in and they just kind of squeeze through for some reason, or cockroaches. So diapedesis is the movement through the capillary wall by squeezing between the endothelial cells. So endothelial cells is just the cells that line the inside. Yeah. Chemotaxis. Yeah, it's caused by bacteria. And why do they come together?
Because they want to kill bacteria, actually.
So whenever, yes, they want to kill bacteria, but what does your bacteria do that causes chemotaxis? There's that. So when bacteria is there, okay, the bacteria don't secrete the chemicals. The bacteria don't enter the body and say, hey, we're here, come and attack us. They don't do that, you know. The bacteria, though, they damage your tissues. You know, same thing like we had the animal biting in the Pac-Man ghost issue over here. When your tissues are injured or damaged, those tissues secrete cytokines. Cytokines are the chemical messengers. The cytokines say, help, help us, help us. And that's chemotaxis, is when the macrophages get that message. They're like, we need to attack this. There is damage over here for some reason. We need to go eat things. Supper time. So, yeah, so like how I'm talking, my words and this sound, for us, I'm a person. This is my sound. You receive it. That's communication, okay? If I am a tissue, I get injured. I secrete chemicals because I don't talk. I'm a tissue. If I secrete chemicals, that's my conversation, those chemicals, cytokines, I'll kind of start with C. Macrophage receives it. That's chemotaxis, is the communication between it. I think that might be injury, actually. So chemo means chemical, tax means injury, so that helps. Adhesion, apparently I can't spell surround. Apparently it doesn't have surround, okay. Adhesion, so basically when macrophages bind to the surface of a pathogen, surround it and engulf it, and then digest the pathogen. So this is kind of like your Pac-Man eating the ghost. Engulf it and then digest it with enzymes. So let's see. When someone is running a fever, their temperature increases and the spleen takes up iron. Why does the spleen take up iron? Your spleen takes iron out of your blood. Your spleen kind of hoards it.
To keep it from the bacteria, right?
Yeah. To keep it away from bacteria, because your bacteria need iron to grow and divide. So when you get sick, you run a fever and you have low iron levels because your spleen is hoarding all of it. So thus fever restricts. So you're going to either cross one, this one I might take out, but you circle, restrict, and cross out promote. Fever restricts the growth of pathogens and promotes activity of phagocytes. So pathogens being the ghosts, phagocytes being Pac-Men. So yeah, we don't like them to have our iron. Ooh, yay, pus. Pus occurs with inflammation and is a combination of dead pathogens, damaged cells, and white blood cells. So it's pretty straightforward there. So before we were talking about, remember the first one we were talking about in that chart, if I can find it, we're talking about different chemical barriers, and we had enzymes, interferons, defensins, collectins, and complement. This last, I think it's the last one. Yeah, this last portion of it is what goes over those chemical barriers that we put down here. So our chemical barriers are collectins, enzymes, complement, interferons, and defensins. So if you need to memorize what are chemical barriers, the list is right here. And there are their definitions. So collectins protect against bacteria, yeast, and some viruses. Collectins adhere, so they kind of stick to them and make them susceptible to phagocytosis. So collectins detect a foreign sugar molecule on the bacteria and kind of bind to it. Because sometimes, I guess there's a lot of crime in your body, okay? And so your macrophages are all over the place. So your collectins kind of step in and they try to like neutralize the issue so it doesn't cause any more damage to the body until the phagocytes can come back later. That's what your collectins do. And I would remember a key word. I don't remember what key word. I guess sugar molecule is a key word, if that helps. So collectin, sugar molecule. I don't know. Yeast. Oh, that's a good one too, yeast. Because another thing too is some people have yeast infections and they may not know it. They may like crave like a lot of sugar or something. And it's not because they crave the sugar. It's because the yeast infection has like taken control of their digestive tract, which then goes up to your brain. It's like, hey, I need sugar, because the yeast infection is like, give me more sugar. So, so if that helps, yeast, sugar molecule, colectin, I don't know if that helps. Enzyme. So this provides a chemical barrier, right? Because enzymes are chemicals. A chemical barrier to pathogens. So pepsin in gastric juice and lysosome in tears. So this is a huge one, lysosome. That's a good one to know. Lysosome and pepsin. These are enzymes, right? Pepsin we learned about in the digestive system. Lysosome, you just cry. That's why if you get like an infection or something in your eye, your eyes get really watery. It's because you're trying to get that all out. Same thing with allergies, but allergies is something different than this. Interferons block viral replication. That's a good one, viral. And acts against tumor growth. So those are your interferons. They interfere with growth. You know, they interfere with viral growth, and they interfere with tumor growth. Interferons. You know, they're like, stop growing. And they also stimulate phagocytosis. So interferons are like, eat this, stop growing, and you will be consumed. Defensins, and you think about the word defense, these cripple microbes lyse the cellular membranes and walls. So defensins are like the only ones, I believe. Yeah. So the defensins kind of go up and like cut them open. They're like, we're defending you. We're going to slice you out like gladiator style or something. And defensins are produced by your neutrophils and your other granulocytes. And what are your other granulocytes? Your eosinophils, your basophils, right? Those other white blood cells. Those are granulocytes. So your granulocytes produce defensins. Lastly, we have complement. And if you look at this, Pac-Man ghost, that's getting destroyed by lightning. We'll talk about different kinds of ways of complement, you know, different forms of complement enzymes, such as agglutination, lysis, optimization. Yeah, so there's quite a bit, but hopefully this is kind of breaking things down, like what complement does. But complement is a chemical barrier, a chemical defense. So, right, I just said complement. Okay, good. Chemical barrier. You're good. And that concludes all of this, all of number 3.